The following video was sponsored by the Greek American Heritage Society of Philadelphia, preserving and promoting our community's history.
Danielle was a free spirit who always lived life to the fullest.
So tell us first of all about this item here.
This is a flag. It has Danielle's name on it and it has 1971, the year she was born, and 2001, the day she was killed. And it's a flag that all the family members from September 11th had victims were given a flag. So we keep it in this room. We kind of have, this room is sort of a little remembrance to Danielle. We have her picture up here and then different items that we've gotten throughout the years connected to 9/11. We keep here sort of help us keep her memory alive. This is what we were given. It has Danielle's date of birth and her date of death on it, and it contains ashes from Ground Zero. And again, we feel that Ground Zero is Danielle's final resting place. So all this helps us, stay a little closer to her, feel a little closer to her. We also have, we were given, this is steel from the World Trade Center. And so we keep this, and this was given to us by Cantor Fitzgerald, who was where Danielle worked. Danielle worked at Cantor Fitzgerald her whole time in New York, from when she graduated college up until her death, and that's who she was working for at the time of her death. And it's steel, and it says, "You will always be a part of our family." And so we keep that again to help keep us close. And this is very, very special. This is from St. Nicholas National Shrine. And me and my family went for the groundbreaking of St. Nicholas. We went there and they had a service, and the ayesmos, that the holy water that they presented was in here, and they had the family members present that for the groundbreaking. And then we just have various pictures of not only Danielle, but the rest of our extended family. This is sort of like a true family room where we, keep memories of all our loved ones, and most of the people, other than my parents, have all passed away, and it's sort of like a memory to all those who are near and dear to us. And we were also given throughout the years flags that have been flown in Iraq, like during the Iraqi war. So we've been given like the flags that were flown. This one was flown on the 10-year anniversary of 9/11 in Iraq, and the flag is above it with a certificate stating that, and that's the actual flag that was flown there in memory of Danielle and all the other victims. And then there was another one from 2006, same thing. It was flown in Danielle's memory and was sent to us, reminding us that Danielle and the other victims will never be forgotten, even all these years later. So it's very important to us to keep Danielle's memory alive and to have people remember not only Danielle, but all the other victims of that terrible day, because I think we need to never forget. We need to make sure something like this doesn't happen again, and to make sure that the people that died did not die in vain, and that their deaths meant something. And so it's very important for us to help keep Danielle's memory alive in our own house, and to be reminded of her presence every day.
Can you talk to us about Danielle? What was she like, and what do you remember most vividly about her?
Danielle was a free spirit who always lived life to the fullest. When she had a goal, she would set her mind to it and accomplish it. She was an avid runner, and she always wanted to do the New York City Marathon. So she set her mind to it, trained, and completed it. Her lifelong dream was to live and work in New York. And after she graduated from Villanova, she fulfilled that. She got a job in New York and went to work in New York, and she just loved it. So she always, just did everything, she set her mind to. She was also a very generous person. She always would do anything she could to help others. I remember one year I was in a very bad car accident in November. It was the November right before 9/11. And I had, broken some bones. I was laid up. And for New Year's Eve that year, she decided that she was gonna, because I couldn't go anywhere, she planned a big party at my parents' house where I was, being taken care of at the time. And it was just her way of inviting our friends over and making sure that I had a good time and that I, was able to celebrate it even though, I wasn't able to go anywhere. And that's just sort of the type of person she was. She bought me a laptop because I wasn't able to get out of bed. I'd broken some ribs, a leg, my back, and she just wanted to make sure that I was taken care of. She, did anything she could to help others, and that's more though than herself. Like, she would always put other people first, and that's kind of what I remember most about her, how generous she was, how happy she always was, and how she never really let anything get her down. And she was just, a wonderful person inside and out that really cared about other people.
Share with us your memory of the day of the attacks.
The day of the attacks, I was working as a public defender in Philadelphia, and I was actually in court at the time, and I remember hearing people talk on the elevator about how a plane had hit the World Trade Center. And I knew that my sister worked there, and when they were first talking about it, I thought they were talking about like a new movie that came out. Like, I hadn't really connected it. And then once I got into the courtroom and other people were talking, I came to find out that a plane had hit the World Trade Center, and knowing that my sister worked there, I tried to call her, but I couldn't get through. So I finished up what I had to do in court, and I went back to my office. And by the time I got back to my office, I had many messages from my parents, from my sister Faith that lived in Maryland at the time, asking if I'd heard from Danielle. And at that point, I had heard that a second plane had hit the South Tower because Danielle worked in the North Tower, and that's the first tower that was hit. And so at that point, not being able to get in touch with her, I was getting very upset. So I ended up leaving work to come home. At the time, I was living in South Jersey, not far from where my parents in South Jersey lived. And even just getting out of Philadelphia that day was very hard. The trains weren't running because of everything going on in New York. Everything was at a standstill. I was very eager to get home and be with my family. I ended up calling one of my friends that was working in New Jersey at the time. He came and picked me up in Philadelphia on the corner, took me back home. When I got home, I came to my parents' house, and we were still waiting to hear word from Danielle. She had talked to her boyfriend a couple of times on the phone who had gotten through to her. He lived in New York also, and he called to let us know that he talked to her, that she was on the 104th floor where she worked at Cantor Fitzgerald, and she was trapped with other people. We were told there was a lot of smoke. They couldn't really breathe. They were trying to keep close to the ground. At one point, they tried to go up to the roof believing they could get rescued that way because the stairwells were blocked and they couldn't get down because of where the plane hit. But the door to the roof was locked, so they went back down, and they were just sort of all huddling together, on their floor. Some of them, we were told were breaking out windows to try to get air. And at that point, having just come home from work, I was still in my suit. So I lived like 5 minutes from my parents. So I went home to change. And by the time I got back to my parents' house, the South Tower had fallen. And when I got back to my parents' house, we found out that Danielle had spoken to her boyfriend. She knew the South Tower had fallen, and she was asking if her boyfriend, if he thought her tower would fall. And Danielle was a very determined person. The last thing she said to her boyfriend, Chris, at the time was, well, I'm going to figure out a way to get out of here. I'll see you when I get home. And that was the last, we heard from her. Because 10 minutes later, her tower fell. Her tower fell around 10:29. The last time she talked to him was probably around 10:15. So we knew she was alive when her tower fell. And I think that makes it a little bit harder because, you realize that one, that she might have suffered, like being alive when that happened. And two, her having the knowledge that the South Tower had fallen, it's hard to think what she would have thought at that point. I think until the South Tower, the first tower fell, no one really thought the towers would fall. Like, it never really crossed my mind. I figured, yes, they have to survive the fire, but eventually they'll be rescued. But when the South Tower fell, I think that changed everything. And at that point, the realization that her tower could fall also. And to be stuck in a burning building 104 floors up, thinking that your tower could fall at any time. That's got to be, very difficult, and to just wonder, what her last times were like. And I know that her boyfriend also said that she had tried to call us and she couldn't get through. So I think it was just very difficult. And then once the tower fell, we still held out hope for weeks that maybe they would find her, even though we knew that no one that had been in the towers up that high had been, had been rescued. So, but we still, until, for as long as we could, we held out hope that maybe we would, she would somehow survive. We never received any. We were one of the many families that never received anything back. Nothing was recovered from her, and so it made it very hard to get some closure. Because, we didn't have, we weren't able to really have like a proper burial, a funeral. We had a memorial service, but it wasn't really the same. It's not the same as, kind of having that closure of having a funeral. And so that, was very difficult. And after 9/11, we all kind of, came together, my family, and, we had a lot of support from the community, like even during those days, on 9/11 and the days following, we had many family and friends coming in and out of the house, just checking on us, bringing us food, making calls, just seeing how we were. And even for the months following 9/11, we had, people checking in on us. And to this day, we still receive messages and notes, around the anniversary of 9/11, around the anniversary of, on Danielle's birthday, September 26th. And I think that made it all a little more difficult. Is Danielle was supposed to come home on Saturday, September 15th. We were having a surprise 30th birthday party for her. She would have turned 30 that September 26th. And she was coming home on the 15th. She thought she was coming home to run in the Philadelphia distance run on the 16th. There was a half marathon on the 16th in Philadelphia that she was going to run in. I talked to her on the 10th, and she asked me to pick up her race packet for her, which I was going to do. And she reminded me to have my dad, who's a really good cook, not cook anything too spicy, because she was going to be running in a race the next day. Little did she know we were having a party with over 100 people, and it was unlikely she was going to be in any condition to run a half marathon on that Sunday. And my dad had even gotten like a pig, because one of her things that she had always said is she wanted him to roast a pig in the backyard. So for her 30th birthday, he'd ordered a pig, and he was going to surprise her with that. So obviously that party never happened, and Danielle never got to celebrate her 30th birthday.
Spoken specifically to some extent about what happened post 9/11. Could you speak a little further on that? What exactly was taking place in the days and weeks after the attack, both here at home and from what you were being told?
In terms of here at home, we were just trying to kind of come to terms with kind of our new normal, like not having Danielle here, with the realization that she was gone at a very young age, with her whole life ahead of her. My mom and my sister and brother and I actually went up to New York in the days following 9/11, and we were able to go to the site. Danielle's boyfriend at the time worked for a company that was helping with the recovery efforts at Ground Zero. So he was able to get us on the site. And so we were actually able to go to the site, which was very difficult. At the time, it was still burning. You could still kind of, the smell was awful. I mean, I think a lot of it was human flesh. Like we were just smelling really bad smells. But, to go and to kind of see, what was there was very important, at least to me. In the days that followed 9/11, what I wanted most was to find out more about Danielle's final hours and find out how things went for her. I tried to scour the internet, talk to people, talk to other victims' families to see if they heard from their loved ones, to just try to figure out and piece together what her final moments might have been like. I think that was kind of important for me to try to get closure. I think there was a lot of, with my part, like a lot of, anger as to, and confusion as to how this could happen. How could 4 planes be hijacked at the same time? Like it just seemed incomprehensible to me that this even, happened. Like, and so it was very difficult, like, even just trying to find answers as to what kind of went wrong. To this day, still trying to figure out, why, with all the intelligence we have, with all the, with everything we have in this country to kind of, combat, terrorism and other, threats, why this even happened.
Let's talk a little bit more about Ground Zero, what that place means to you and your family, and how often all of you visit?
To us, to my family, that's sort of Danielle's final resting place, because we never recovered anything of her. That's where she's buried. And so it's sacred ground for us. It's very important for us to every year go up. Me and my parents every year go up for the memorial. My brother has not gone to Ground Zero since we went and visited it in the days following 9/11, and I think that's because had such a profound effect on him. He just to this day can't bring himself to go there. He remembers her in other ways in doing many times there's local things going on in our community to remember that day, and he participates in that way to remember Danielle. But me and my parents go up every year. I have an older sister. She's gone numerous times. She lives in Maryland. She had children, young children that were born right after 9/11, so it was sometimes hard for her to travel up there. But when she can make it up there, she does. My niece, who just started college, who never got the honor of meeting Danielle because she was born, after 9/11, she has actually read names, at the memorial on 9/11. So it's very important for me and my parents to go up there to remember her, to feel close to her. So we go up, once a year for that. And then throughout the year, if we find ourselves in New York, we'll stop by, and visit the memorial. We've gone other times with other family members and friends who have wanted to see it. And there's many times that I have friends go and they'll send me pictures of Danielle's name in the memorial and let me know they were there paying tribute to her. And for us, it's very important. We never want Danielle or any of the other victims to ever be forgotten. So I think that's why it's so important to have that space and to have that kept as sacred ground, since it is the final resting place of so many. Instead of having built other things there, I think having the memorial there, is a wonderful way to remember Danielle and the other victims, and for generations to come who maybe weren't born on 9/11 and didn't experience it firsthand, to have the museum there to be able to tell the stories of the victims.
Danielle's legacy lives on in many ways. Could you describe and share some of that with us, both locally and part of the national scene?
Yeah, so we try to remember Danielle in every way we can. Us as a family, we started the Danielle Kousoulis Memorial Scholarship Fund in the year after 9/11. And that fund provides a scholarship to a high school senior at Danielle's High School, Haddon Township High School, and also at Danielle's church, St. Thomas Greek Orthodox Church, and to be used for their college education. And we started that fund because we wanted to continue Danielle's generous and caring nature and to have her memory and spirit live on. We also have at the elementary school where Danielle went, Stoy School, we started a memorial garden. It was actually an idea that her friends that she had since kindergarten, and that she had up until the day she died, it was their idea to start a memorial garden. So we started a memorial garden at her, at the elementary school. And connected with that is there's a survivor tree. One of the organizations I got involved in after 9/11 was the September 11th Education Trust. And what our organization does, one of the things is we developed a curriculum for high school students to teach them about 9/11. Because again, many students these days don't have any personal experience of 9/11 since it happened 20 years ago. They weren't born when it happened. So we want to make sure that the story of 9/11 is told for generations to come so people can learn about what happened that day, about how people came together afterwards, how a lot of people got civically involved in their local and national, government to try to help bring about change so it doesn't happen again. And so that's very important. But another thing that the organization does is we have an exchange program with the Oklahoma City families who were part of the Oklahoma City bombing in 1996. And what we do in that respect is we have exchange programs where our 9/11 families meet with the Oklahoma City families, and we have that shared experience of losing people through terrorism. Oklahoma City bombing was domestic terrorism, whereas September 11th was international terrorism. But one of the things we do is we go out to the Oklahoma City Memorial every year, and they come to our memorial. And one year when we went to the Oklahoma City Memorial, there's a tree out in Oklahoma City that was destroyed when the federal building was bombed. And they were getting ready to just remove the tree. And on the day they went to remove it to make space for the memorial that they were building, there was a flower on the tree. and they decided that the tree still had life in it, and they ended up leaving it, and now it's a beautiful tree that's the center of the Oklahoma City Memorial. And every year at the memorial, they take sapling and seeds from that tree, and they give it to people that attend the memorial. And I decided one year when I went to bring it home, thinking my dad could plant it in our backyard as a sort of a tribute to Danielle. When we brought it home, there wasn't really a place in my yard, but Danielle's friend from high school and elementary school, she suggested planting it near her garden at the elementary school. So we decided to do that, and now the tree has grown and it's a beautiful big tree, and we put a plaque in front of it that kind of explains its connection to Oklahoma City, and I think it's just, you know, a good reminder of how beautiful things can come from tragedy, and for just to keep the hope and just to kind of persevere on, because that's sort of who Danielle was. Danielle, it was very hard after 9/11 to find sort of a purpose and to not be angry and sad and want to stop living because here my sister was gone. But that's not what Danielle would want. Danielle would want us to keep living our lives and to do what we want to do, and to keep contributing, and to, you know, live our best life and live our lives to the fullest every day, just like she did. And I think to honor her memory, you know, we need to kind of go on and do what we need to do.
For me, it's tough to talk about Danielle. Danielle ήταν πολύ γενναιόδορη σε όλα της. Αλλά όπως ήταν τα πράγματα, την έχασα πολύ γρήγορα. Και αυτό μόνο θυμάμαι, ότι πάντα μου τηλεφωνούσε από τη δουλειά της και μου λέει «Άι μπηγάι». Και ερχόταν πολλές φορές στα weekends και την έβλεπα εδώ, έτσι όλο.
The day of the attacks, tell us about that day.
Είχα appointment και πήγα στο γιατρό. Όταν πήγα στο waiting room, ήταν 2-3 people there και είχαν το τηλεβίζιο. Και είδα τον καπνό και τη φωτιά που είχε βγάλει και λέω «Τι γίνεται?» τους ρώτησα και μου λένε «Κάποιος τρελός χτύπησε ένα κτίριο στη Νέα Υόρκη». Αλλά δεν έδωσα σημασία, πήγα στο γιατρό, έφυγα. Όταν έφυγα από τον γιατρό σταμάτησα σε ένα λικεστό να πάρω κρασί. Το είχαν το τηλεβίζιο και εκεί. Τους ρώτησα, μου λένε τους πύργους. Σε ούτε κρασί πήρα ούτε τίποτα, έφυγα, ήρθα εδώ. Ήρθε ο γιος μου, το τηλεβίζιο ανοιχτό μέσα και έβλεπε αυτά, κάθισα και εγώ δίπλα του και έβλεπα τη φωτιά και τον καπνό, την Ντανιέλ μέσα. Το μόνο που με πείραξε και με πειράζει ακόμα, δεν σηκώθηκα, δεν άπλωστα τα χέρια μου να τη βοηθήσω, που ζητούσε βοήθεια. Όπως εγώ νομίζω και πιστεύω, η Ντανιέλ με τους άλλους δύο που τους μαζί που δουλεύανε στο ίδιο γραφείο, στο 104 πάτωμα, καήκανε ζωντανοί. Αυτό δεν φεύγει από την καρδιά μου, αυτό το ποτέ δεν θα μου περάσει αυτό. Διότι δεν τη βοήθησα, ήθελε βοήθεια και εγώ έμεινα ατάραχος, δεν κινήθηκα καθόλου.
What happened in the days and weeks after the attack?
Προσπαθούσαμε μήπως βρούμε κάτι, αλλά δυστυχώς δεν βρήκαμε τίποτα. Και έτσι όταν περάσανε 2 εβδομάδες θελήσαμε να κάνουμε κάτι στον Άγιο Θωμά, στην Άγια Κηδεία, χωρίς σώμα, χωρίς τίποτα. Το μόνο που βάλαμε ένα τραπέζι μπροστά στο ιερό με τη φωτογραφία και ήρθε ο Αρχιεπίσκοπος και έκανε Άγια Κηδεία, τίποτα άλλο. Δεν μπορούσαμε να κάνουμε τίποτα άλλο.
The memorial in New York, how often do you visit?
Every year, and sometimes more, 2 times a year, depends. Every year στο memorial, yeah, because πιστεύω στο ground zero εκεί είναι το κημητήριο για την κόρη μου. Γι' αυτό πηγαίνω κάθε χρόνο.
Well, every year there's a golf outing.
Oh yeah, the golf outing, yeah. Yeah, το κάνουμε for a member in Danielle's and for giving that to scholarships every year. Γίνουμε υποτροφίες, every year, κάθε χρόνο, στο ένα παιδί από το γυμνάσιο που πήγε Danielle και την άλλη υποτροφία στον Άγιο Θωμά που τελειώνει το high school, τελειώνει το γυμνάσιο και πάει στο πανεπιστήμιο.
How do you personally memorialize her? Do you have something you do to remember her every day, or do you do anything else special? Do you visit the church? Do you light a candle in her name every day or every year?
Yeah,
Talk to us a little bit about that.
Every Sunday, κάθε Κυριακή που πάμε στην εκκλησία, ανάβω ένα κερί in memory Danielle. And κάθε χρόνο, το Σεπτέμβριο έχουμε μνημόσυνο για την Danielle, όπως είχαμε εχθές. Εχθές την Κυριακή, μνημόσυνο για 20 χρόνια.
You've visited Ground Zero several times, but one of the first few times, you actually, there's some photographs of you there holding up a sign. Tell us about the occasion, the sign, and the significance and how it makes you feel.
Η Ελένη make the sign και την παίρνουμε κάθε χρόνο την ώρα που διαβάζουν τα ονόματα και έχει φωτογραφίες πότε γεννήθηκε, το όνομά της, πότε γεννήθηκε, πότε πέθανε και everybody, όλοι με σταματάνε και μου λένε συλληπιτήρια διότι βλέπουν τη φωτογραφία της Danielle. Το μόνο ρίτζα την παίρνουμε για να θυμόμαστε ότι πράγματι η Danielle ήταν εκεί στο Ground Zero, το σεμετέρι, το κημητήριο.
20 years on, what do you think about the efforts to investigate the attacks? Do you feel that justice has been served?
I don't believe justice has fully been served. I was very thankful that bin Laden was killed and that he was sort of paid for, his part in this, but I think there's a lot of other people that were a part of it that have not been properly brought to justice. I know in 2004, the September 11th Commission concluded that the Saudi government was not complicit and did not have any involvement. However, I'm not necessarily convinced of that. And I know since 2004, the FBI has been further investigating the Saudi government to see whether or not they were more involved. 15 of the 19 hijackers came from Saudi Arabia. I find it hard to believe that there wasn't some more involvement by the Saudi government and whether the Americans are being told the whole story. And I'm very happy that President Biden has decided to declassify some of the investigation and to make it public in order for families and others to kind of have a better idea of maybe, what evidence they have. So I'm looking forward to seeing, what happens with the declassification. Again, nothing's been declassified yet. I think President Biden has directed that certain documents be reviewed for declassification and that should happen in the next several months. So I'll be curious to see what that unfolds. But I believe that there are probably others out there that have not been brought to justice. And with all the power our government has, 20 years later, I'm not sure why it's taking so long.
For more information about sponsoring or viewing the interview series, visit the Greek American Heritage Society of Philadelphia online at gahsp.org.